Hello and welcome back. Let's now talk about the border properties, and we have added the border property within the universal selector. And for the border, first we can provide the border thickness of it like I mentioned as 1 pixel. And then comes to the border style, and we get different style options like solid, dotted, dashed, etc., including none and hidden. So the value of none means no border. This is also the default value in the browsers, and then the value of hidden simply means that there is a border but it is hidden. So while hidden, it's still there and occupying some space depending upon the thickness that we have set. And lastly, we can provide the color, and the default color of border is always black. So this is kind of a shortened method, but there we have three different values. Now let me add the border property to this h2. So I can add border, and let's add the thickness as 5 pixels, space solid as border style, space blue as the border color. I save again and refresh the browser. Now notice that everywhere we have the border as specified within the universal selector. Just for the header, the border property is different as I just modified. So in CSS, if you provide any property for any element, and then if you add another property later, then the later one will be preferred. And this is valid for all properties. In simple terms, what comes later will be applied. Apart from that, if I just add the border color and set a color, then it will override the property and set the new color for all four sides. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see latest color that we selected is applied on it. If I make it border top color, then this will be only the border top color. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see color is applied only on the top. Same way we can add border right color, border left color, border bottom color, and then for style we have border style, border top style, border bottom style, border left style, and border right style. And the same border width, border left width, border right width, border top width, or border bottom width. And lastly, for each one we can use the shorthand, like if I use for example border color and mentioned four colors, then just like padding and margin, the order will be top, right, bottom, and left. Save it and refresh the browser. Again it works the same way as with padding and margin. In the same way, three values means top color, left right color, and bottom color. And then two values means top bottom color and left right color. And finally one value means color for all side. Likewise, border style and border width can also have 4, 3, 2, or 1 values. So this is how you can use the border values. We have various different options of units to select, and these units can be broadly categorized into absolute units and relative units. Absolute units are the fixed units. That means the values do not change with respect to the screen size or with respect to the parent element size. On the other hand, the relative units do change with respect to the change in the screen size or change in the parent element size. Let's first start with the absolute units, and within the absolute units we get couple of options, and first one might be looking quite familiar, which is pixels, because this is the one we have been using so far. And in fact, out of all the options that are available here, pixel is the most commonly used ones, because this is more suitable for the digital devices, since they are all made up of screens which are composed of pixels. On the other hand, the all other units have majorly been used for the print media, and if you look over these options, then many of them are also quite familiar, like centimeter, inches, and one thing to keep in mind is that wherever we can use pixels, we can use these other units as well. And the order that you see here is basically the ascending order, which means that pixels is the smallest units, whereas points are slightly bigger, followed by millimeter, because centimeter and inch. So let's try these different options. I already make two paragraphs here. We will check measurements units on these paragraphs. First change these pixels to points. Then save it and refresh the browser. There is slightly little bit difference in style. Now if I change this point to millimeter and then save it and refresh the browser, this time the difference is quite big. Likewise if I change it to millimeter, which is the biggest of all, save it and refresh the browser. You can see its size becomes quite large now. We can hardly see it. We are able to view its parts only. These are the absolute units. This is our page structure. I have make few parent and child elements here. For example, let's take this paragraph element which is a child of a parent element div, and let's try the different absolute values and see if any change is made to the parent element or actually impacting it or not. So this paragraph already have the ID of P1. So let's go back to the style document and make it hash P1 for the ID. Now this has become an ID selector, and all these changes are going to be applied only to this paragraph with the ID of P1. Save it and refresh the browser. We now have all the changes applied only to this paragraph. So as I said in previous video that absolute units are not dependent upon the parent element. If we go back to my HTML document, and here the parent element for this paragraph is the div element with the class of first div. So let me copy this class name and make it class selector in style document. Here let me add the font size. Save it and refresh the browser. Nothing's gonna change, and it is because absolute units does not depends on their parent elements. But this is not the case with the relative units. So in the relative units we get various different options and change with respect to the parent element size or the screen size. So let's start with percentage. First comment this class selector. If I make this 1%, this 1% is basically 1% of the font size of the parent element. Now if you see over here, nowhere we have specified the font size of any parent or child element. So in that case it's gonna go with the default font size. So the default font size, as we already know, is 16 pixels. So this 1% is gonna be the 1% of 16 pixels, which is 0.16 pixels. So if I save it and then reload, and you can see over here that the paragraph has become too small because it's the only 1% of 16 pixels. If I make it 100%, and this time it's gonna be 100% of 16 pixels, which will become 16 pixels. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that this time the size is equal to other paragraph, which also have 16 pixels font size. Likewise if I change it to, let's say, 200%, save it and refresh the browser, it has now become 32 pixels, because 200 pixels of 16 pixels is 32 pixels. Now if I look back in the HTML document, then the parent element of this paragraph is the div element. So within the style sheet, if I just uncomment this div, and then this font size of 60 pixels is gonna impact the font size of this paragraph, which is the child element, because in this case we are using percentage as a unit. So percentage is relative unit which is dependent upon the parent element. Save it and refresh the browser. You can see that font size again increased because 200% of 60 pixels is basically 120 pixels. So it's quite big. If I change it to let's say 20 pixels and then save it and refresh, now its size becomes 40 pixels because 200 pixels of 20 pixels is 40 pixels. One thing to keep in mind, the way CSS work is that it first look at the parent element. If the parent element does not have any font size specified, then it goes to the next parent element in the hierarchy. And if it does not see any font size either, then it goes again to the higher hierarchy, which is body, and then goes all way to the HTML tag. So that's it for this video. Keep practice these things and see you in the next video.